Take a deep breath and calm down. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Warning, Omori is a game with heavy themes and depictions of suicide, self-harm, and depression. Viewer discretion is advised. Indie games are hardly afraid of tackling sensitive topics with nerve-wracking imagery and making the player face harsh and unpleasant truths that hit a little too close to home. Joining those ranks back in 2020 was Omori, released for the PC, and then consoles June 2022. Omori looks really great, having an inviting color palette, and yet something about it feels off. Our journey begins in White Space, a place you've been in as long as you can remember. You go into Headspace, an imaginative world where things are happy, bright, and fun. Joining you are your best friends, Hiro, Aubrey, Kel, Basil, and your older sister, Mari. It's just an ordinary day of fun adventures, looking through old photos, and playing a mischievous game of hide and seek. Afterward, it's time to hang out at Basil's house, and on the way, the photos get mixed up, but nothing that the gang can't fix. However, one peculiar photo falls out, and something about that photo isn't right, which instantly warps you back to White Space. Upon returning to Headspace, Basil has gone missing, and thus begins your journey in finding not only Basil, but confronting a bizarre truth. Mentioned before, Omori handles heavy subject matter with crude depictions and dreadful spooks. It's not necessarily for the faint of heart, especially if you're dealing with guilt, self-loathing, and grief. However, to help mitigate those depressing themes is an amazing cast of characters, really driving home the point that having someone there can help someone internally suffering overcome. There's not a single bad cast member. Mari, the doting older sister, Hiro, Mari's sweetheart and older brother to Kel, an energetic sporty kid who butts heads with Aubrey, and Aubrey, a strong-willed sassy girl, and lastly, Basil, your best friend who is gentle-hearted and kind. Even supporting characters, no matter how goofy, have their charm. The main cast is instantly likable, and you truly get the sense that they all love and care for each other. They are perfect friends, and depending on what choices you make, you'll get to see a less perfect and more realistic side of them. The dialogue is very much akin to Earthbound or Mother 3, with silly conversations among kooky characters. It's an absolute joy speaking to everyone, scoring a few laughs in between those intense scenes. But as comical the tone can be, Omori's writing can take some sinister turns. Now, the less you know about Omori, the more you'll get out of it, but it's important to note that there are 2 routes and 5 endings. There's the true route, which I highly recommend playing first. It's longer and gives a lot more context to Headspace. Then there is the hikikomori or Omori route. A hikikomori is a form of severe social withdrawal from society and seeking extreme degrees of social isolation and confinement. Hikikomori refers to both the phenomenon in general and the recluses themselves. In simple terms, a hermit. This route blocks a large portion of the game, replacing it with extended headspace, new locations, and side quests. It's also hard mode, as enemies and bosses are buffed, but with higher risk comes higher reward, and some new and powerful skills. Regardless of which route you take, it's important to understand the combat, which is pretty straightforward. Omori is a standard turn-based game that utilizes an emotion system that works like rock, paper, scissors. The 5 main emotions are neutral, happy, sad, angry, and afraid. Neutral, not strong against anything, nor weak. Happy beats anger, anger beats sadness, and sadness beats happiness. Afraid is weak against all emotions, and you will be unable to use any skills. Each emotion grants different buffs and debuffs. Happy raises your critical rate, but you miss more. Anger, you do more damage, but your defense lowers. Sad is higher defense, but lower speed. Emotions can reach different stages, which enhances the buff and debuff. Happy goes to ecstatic to manic. Omori is the only one who can reach stage 3. The idea here is to use skills on your party and bosses to change their emotions to benefit you. And that sounds great and all, but it is severely underutilized. Normal encounters, barely. Boss fights, almost always, bosses tend to lock themselves into an emotion that cannot be changed. Although I say this only playing the true route where monsters aren't buffed. Follow-ups are powerful skills that follow after a basic attack. Text bubbles appear next to the character's portrait. Select the direction indicated for a follow-up move. The follow-up move varies based on what characters are involved. This is a great way to get in extra attacks, grant buffs, healing, or change characters' emotions. As you progress, the bonds of friendship strengthen. Follow-ups change and become more powerful. I do wish there was a little description saying which follow-up did what, rather than look at this character. Each follow-up costs 3 energy, and energy is gained every time a foe deals damage to an ally. If you manage to stock up 10 energy points, you can release energy, which is a devastating all-out attack. Omori is a difficult game at the start. Enemies are tanky and they hit hard. Getting your shit rocked in the beginning is pretty common. But to this game's credit, there is a saving grace. If Omori takes fatal damage, he will survive the attack with 1 HP. For that round, he cannot die. He will not succumb. This is fantastic. In every game where if the protagonist dies is an automatic game over, this should be a mechanic. In the event you do get a game over, there is a retry option, which is great. However, there is no menu that pops up to reorganize your skill set. You can only have 4 skills at a time, and some skills do more damage to angry foes or hit multiple enemies. And going into this game fighting bosses blind, learning their skill set, their emotions, having at them a second round with newfound knowledge, yet unable to redress your party to better fight them immediately after? A rookie mistake. Granted, there are save points nearby, so it's not like you have to travel far to fight them again, and you can skip cutscenes, but a little polish never hurt nobody. The combat didn't add much to Omori. I think the game would have been better as a visual novel, leaving more room for thoughtful storytelling. But, for what it's worth, I was grateful there was combat. To a chicken shit like me, this felt like an icebreaker, a moment where I wasn't powerless to the horrors that haunt our protagonist. I can fight back rather than reading about how spiders are eating my face. Fun fact, there are a few new differences between the PC version and the console release. The screen is no longer 4:3, it's 16:9, which brings us to new borders. A boss rush mode where Basil can join you in the fight, with 2 new fights at the very end, a new boss in the Hikikomori route, and some additional creepy areas. It may be hard to believe that Omori is a gritty, dark game with how cute the presentation is. Omori was created in RPG Maker, and it's brimming with loud colors and pleasant pixel art. Many a time has this game said to have taken inspiration from Earthbound, and graphically it's very similar. We have 4 kids on a zany adventure with weird characters and goofy dialogue. There's a variety of environments in Headspace looking drastically different from one another, and they did a marvelous job with exploration. There's a lot to see and so much you could miss. There are side quests, various scenes, dungeons, dialogue, and jump scares. It is impressive how much detail and nuance they've packed into this game. There is a plethora of interesting tidbits should you take the time to backtrack and speak to NPCs. There's just a perfect amount of side quests along with searching for keys for an unsettling game of Hangman, which is mandatory for beating the game. Each character has field skills, used to help open new paths. Tag a character to make them leader and walk up to whatever obstacle to activate their skill. This made for cute, simple puzzles. Admittedly, I did a terrible job at exploring the creepier levels, as there were several optional jump scares that I could not be bothered with. I 100% bum rushed those. Honestly, during the scarier bits, I started to handhold YouTube walkthroughs, watching 15 seconds play out to ensure nothing spooky would happen before playing it out in my game. I think thematically, Omori's use of colors is brilliant. Noting Omori is black and white, while those around him match the vibrancy of Headspace. But just as Omori excels with warm visuals, it can equally match in disquieting pictures. I love how the creepiness is sparingly used, really building up to that anxiety and making it more potent when it does rear its ugly head. Also, we cannot not discuss the artwork, the cute, childish scribbles, which also can be made freaky. I love the portrait art, the fact that it changes both in conversation and in battle based on their emotions, or if they're taking damage. It's really well done and very much reminds me of a cleaner version of Shin-chan. Omori's OST is a freaking banger. It's filled with all sorts of music composed primarily by Pedro Silva, Jamie Lin, and Bowen, with some guest artists such as Toby Fox. Just like the rest of the game, it's cute until it's not. It's childish, high energy, and quirky. Got a bunch of area themes, boss themes, enemy themes, etc. It has a very retro sounding OST, coupled with some beautifully orchestrated tracks. My favorite, while boss themes absolutely slap, I think my favorite is a song called Stardust Diving. Oh my god, I could dumpster dive forever in outer space while listening to this. This song made the area so much fun to explore. It's super relaxing while having this beautiful chime of wonder. I love it. Omori is a twisted gem with an adorable cast and an unusual adventure. It is a master of juxtaposition, with bright pastels and cheeky humor, but man, when the horror hits, it hits. This was such a strange journey for me because so many people felt sad and could relate, but me, I was a pussy-ass bitch. I was more afraid because of the jump scares and freaky-ass imagery. And this is a me thing because I love psychological horror, and I suck at handling it. It's like liking spicy foods, but you're unable to handle the heat. When things got creepy, I had my hand over the screen and only read the text boxes. I was fearful for myself that I didn't care how it impacts the character or what that spook symbolized. Due to my cowardice, I avoided a lot of optional areas and frankly missed out on a lot of symbolism. An easier way for me to digest Omori was to visit the wiki page and read up on dialogue, optional areas, and bosses. That said, I still enjoyed my time with Omori. The entire cast are my children now, and we're gonna get therapy now because Lord knows we all need it. If you enjoyed Omori and for some reason haven't played Earthbound or Mother 3, what are you doing? Click the top and bottom boxes as these are some of the inspirations of Omori. If anything, if Omori seems too dark for you, these games are great alternatives as Omori is like the emo child comparatively. Of course, don't forget to join the Patreon to get access to the Discord, early access to videos, and postcards. Until next time, mwah.